I'm the CEO and founder of Bluecard. Just to give you a little bit of an overview, Bluecard started in July 2014. And ever since, we've grown into a 4-office, 60-plus employees across the US. And the origin of the company, essentially what we do is we tackle the procurement space in the hospitality industry. For those of you who have worked in a restaurant, you know that a chef has to place orders every day using phone calls, faxes, emails, multiple websites, and potentially multiple apps. And then on the reverse side, right, suppliers, they have to manage incoming orders through all these different channels, right? Like the order coming in from a text message, the order coming in from a phone call, aggregate those, figure out delivery routes. So a very complex system. And it really baffles me that today restaurants are so successful managing this very, very complex problem, right? So what Bluecard does is essentially creates a single platform providing restaurateurs, retailers, a way to procure all their goods without having to download or access all these different channels. So one platform for all their procurement needs. To give you a sense of who uses Bluecard from the buy side, we have from Four Seasons, Marriott's, Kaiser Permanente hospitals, school districts, universities, Michelin star restaurants, franchises, down to food trucks, including retailers. We do have integrations to allow suppliers to receive orders from Whole Foods and things of that nature. From the supply side, we have from your Unilever, Kraft, your traditional seafoods, meats, dairies, produce, CPGs, all the way down to farmers at the farmer's market. The idea that a supplier today would develop their own mobile app or their own infrastructure to receive process orders without trying Bluecard is ludicrous, right? They should definitely give Bluecard a try. Where it gets really interesting is that Bluecard was built with a network effect embedded into the product. Which means that essentially we're leveraging today's social media methodology to enable the growth of the platform. What happens is that a supplier invites me to Bluecard, I receive an email invite, I click on that, and that automatically downloads the app, and I can see that digital catalog from my supplier, okay? It's not an open marketplace solution. What we do is we enable people to transact and bring today's communication into the digital era. So they have a repository of all their order histories, and they're able to manage their business effectively. Aggregation, as you guys can imagine, is something that we see as inevitable, right? And we do not log into 17 different email addresses to place 17 different emails, right? So likewise, we're not gonna be logging into like 17 different websites or downloading 17 different apps to place 17 different orders, right? So there's gonna be aggregation, and hopefully you guys will see some of the signs that Bluecard is taking that leadership position. Give you a sense of our current reach. Today we have well over 40,000 buyers in the platform. These are, we operate in the business to business. It's not business to consumer. I mentioned some of the buyers that we have and as the suppliers, a little bit over 5,500. Mostly they're based in the US. We do have users all over the world. So in Egypt, in the UK, in the EU, as well as in Asia. We don't particularly care. The platform does translate into multiple languages. So what we do is we enable these suppliers to download the app, upload their catalog, list of buyers, and they can manage all their procurement through Bluecard without having to hire a developer to develop their own website and things of that nature. It's all streamlined, and the platform does offer the flexibility to accommodate for all the different like challenges and characteristics that the different industries have. So for example, in the seafood industry, we have things such as catch weights, right? In the wine industry, we have things such like breaking cases by the bottle and things like that, that add a level of complexity. But what that did is it taught us to develop a platform with the flexibility to accommodate for those nuisance, yeah? As you guys can see, most of our users today are on mobile. It's obviously these are the early adopters. There are millennials starting to take over the businesses, and they're very familiar with the use of the phone. So now they're essentially replicating what they've done on their daily lives to manage their own business. What gets really interesting is what you can do once you start having a significant population of users, right? So to give you a sense of what this means, here you can see data on two different markets, that's Washington, D.C. and New York. And what we did is we tracked the purchase of perishable goods in those two markets, right? As a startup, we're ultra sensitive to fluctuations in data. So whenever we see a valley, right, we kind of like freak out about it. And when we see a peak, we're like celebrating. So what happens is that we started tracking these peaks and valleys in these different markets. And it's obviously important to understand perishability of these goods. So what we saw is that we could actually start predicting these, okay? So there's changes in purchases of perishable goods when there's a snowstorm, right? Or when the metro line is out of power, or things of that nature that we can anticipate. And we can actually figure out ways to circle that data back to the users and let them know that they should not purchase goods as they would otherwise, right? As you guys can see, some of the valley that was Trump's inauguration, that was in Washington, D.C. Most of the roads were actually closed, and obviously Valentine's there. But we can actually predict these changes in data, and there's obviously, there's always a few restaurants that miss this, right? And they continue to purchase as everything is going well, and you know, there's a lot of like food waste because of it. So when you start gathering data like that, then you can actually like offer ways for businesses to improve their efficiency in ways that they wouldn't otherwise. For today, just to give you a sense, a restaurant operator or a retailer, right, purchases through Blue Card using information from their sales, using information from their own historical data, so what they sold last year before Valentine's, right? And they'll accommodate their purchasing based on that. What do they have on inventory? Now we're looking at incorporating crowdsourced data, so essentially what's happening in my market to understand what I should buy today, right? And weekly trends. So for example, as you guys know, some restaurants go into like fashion and they have an uptick in their sales, and as a result, they have to accommodate for these things. And supplier, product, and pricing availability, right? So like, because we have a two-sided marketplace, we can inform buyers that kales are out of orders for that supplier, right? So they can make educated decisions on what they need to buy that day or tomorrow or things of that nature. To give you a sense of the suite of products that we offer to operators, today we handle everything that happens in the back of the house. So from the moment that you sell a product, okay, that flows into menu costing, that flows into inventory, into procurement, order check-in, right, and payment, and back into accounting. So the idea is we try to like mitigate any paper trail in the back of the house. Okay. Today, Blue Card does not touch labor, and we don't touch point of sale. Those two markets are very fragmented, and there's a fierce battle to like become the leader in those spaces. So what we do is we just integrate with those solutions. Yeah. What's really interesting is that the moment that you have complete insight into what you have in inventory, what your suppliers have, what your sales are, what the market's doing, and what you've done in the past, right, you become a much more efficient buyer. What we did is about a year and a half ago, we were essentially like selling Blue Card on anecdotal evidence. Okay, we would tell potential users that, you know what, Blue Card is going to be fantastic, it's going to improve your business, but we didn't have any hard evidence to back that up. So what we did is we sampled a little bit over 12,000 users of Blue Card and non-users of Blue Card, and try to like benchmark their performance against each other to see and try to quantify what was the measurable impact that we were having on these businesses. What we saw is very encouraging numbers. Of course, there was a 52% decrease in food waste. Okay, what's happening is that these businesses are operating in just-in-time inventory, right? There's no need to buy, 75 cases of tomatoes, right, when you know what's happening in the market or what you have in inventory. Obviously, there's things such as like reducing return orders and things of that nature that only happen when you have true visibility into what's happening with the supplier side. Yeah. From the supplier side, what we see is a remarkable 15% increase in cart size over time. For those of you guys who are supplying goods to the market, that's very, very important. And the way this happens is that you have a supplier that invites you to transact on Blue Card, right? They download the app, they have access to the products that they buy on a frequent basis, right? But in addition to that, they have access to your entire catalog, right? So what happens is that they don't have to like wait until Tuesday to find out if you supply broccoli. They can immediately see that you supply those goods and add those to their cart. As you guys can imagine, from a restaurant perspective, the more efficient that they are on their buying habits, the more they can save on delivery costs and things of that nature. So this was an effect that, to be quite honest, we did not anticipate when we built Blue Cart, an increase in cart size. And that's because we're essentially enabling these operators to purchase in a more efficient way. We also see a 90% decrease in the number of return orders. From a supplier perspective, you guys know that return orders are an absolute nightmare. What happens is that I have to send out a truck to pick up that order and bring that truck back, right? And usually that product is wasted, right? What happens is that as an operator, they send me an order, I receive that order, and I'm able to essentially like chat with my buyer and let them know that I'm out of kales, that I'm gonna substitute this for other goods. And my buyer is completely informed at every step of the way and knows exactly what's going on. If I make an order error, so as you guys know, the restaurant industry has a lot of people like me with strong accents, right, that place orders very late at night. And those orders, if they're like left on a voice message or things like that, they're prone to error, right? So what we do is we mitigate all those. And obviously they don't have to develop their own infrastructure. So like I mentioned earlier, the fact that a supplier today would toy with the idea of developing their own e-commerce site or their own mobile app is ludicrous, right? They should definitely give a try to Blue Cart, establish that that solution does not fit their needs before they would endeavor into like developing their own platform. Here's where things get really interesting. So now we're starting partnerships with national manufacturing and brand to educate them on buying habits of their businesses. So brands like Kraft, like Unilever, we've done pilots with Anheuser-Busch. So essentially what we're doing is we're letting them know when do their buyers buy their products, in what quantities, in what frequency, what are complementary goods. Today, the industry essentially works in a way that that information is siloed to the distributor, right? So they receive bulk orders from those distributors, you know, and they don't understand how often do people buy Heinz ketchup. They don't understand what are complementary goods to those. And what we do is we empower them to get that knowledge. Where it gets interesting is that this technology is offered to essentially every Blue Cart user, right? So like the idea is that we're developing this leading edge technologies with these national brands and rolling those down to every single one of our users. We believe that Blue Cart will become the one and only procurement platform in the hospitality industry. And the way to achieve that objective is to make sure that we're constantly incentivizing you to join the platform by offering the best product possible. And the idea that a supplier can actually like own a market just because they have access to the latest and greatest technology essentially is what we're trying to like stop. And we're trying to make sure that everybody has access to the latest and greatest technology to compete in quality, to compete in services, right? As opposed to just compete on access to technology. I want to thank you all for being here. Obviously, I want to thank the Fancy Food Show as well as Seeds and Chips for having us here. As I mentioned, Blue Cart is a technology that's offered for every size business. So if you do have any questions, please try to find me or our team, and we'll be happy to address those. Thank you very much. Have a good day.